So there's a verse in the Bible. I don't remember exactly where it is. But again, we live in the land of Google. You can Google it. The verse says something to the effect of, now we see through a glass darkly. It's talking about seeing truth, right? And if you apply it to the Bible itself, if you're looking into a darkened glass, chances are, especially 2,000 years ago, you're looking at your reflection, right? You're not seeing through it, which means it's reflecting back at you. And when you're looking at a reflection, what do you see? You see the truth, right? You see the truth of who you are. However, there's one thing to take into consideration. It's backwards. There's a reversal, right? So if the Bible is saying that now we see through glass darkly, what does it mean? What's the point? This is something I picked up on 30 years ago. And this is the first thing that I noticed as far as where it seems to be a backwards reflection. And it has to do with God and Satan, or Jesus and Lucifer is where we're going here. In the Old Testament, there's a period where the Israelites, God's chosen people, right, are going through the wilderness for 40 years. There's also a verse in the New Testament where Jesus fasts and goes into the wilderness for 40 days. The days and the years bit is a little different, but the 40 remains the same. So in the Old Testament, the children of God, the Israelites, are going through the wilderness for 40 years. And what's the goal? What's the prize? An earthly kingdom. The city, right? Israel. That's what God promises them. The interesting thing is that when Jesus is fasting and he's in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, Satan comes to him, and Satan promises him something. He tells him, he says, look out. He takes him, I think they're like on a cliff or something. He says, look out, at all of it. And he shows him the kingdoms of the world. And he promises him, he says, if you bow down before me, I'll give you all of the kingdoms of the world. And I think it's interesting. There's a connection between the God of the Old Testament giving kingdoms of the world to the children of Israel, and then Satan in the New Testament asking Jesus if he wants kingdoms of the world, right? There's a connection there. And that's not the only connection. When you look at the characters, for instance, of Jesus and Lucifer, they are both referred to as the morning star or the son of the morning. There's a verse in Isaiah, I believe it's Isaiah, it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? And then and it's asking, it's basically referring to the fact that Lucifer was an angel and he fell. And why did he fall? How could you? Then when you go to Revelations, there's a verse where Jesus refers to himself as the morning star, son of the morning star. And that's not where the connection between Jesus and Lucifer ends. Lucifer, of course, is associated with Satan. Two different names, but seems to be the same dude. They're both referred to as lions. Jesus is referred to as the Lion of Judah. And Satan, they mention him as going throughout the earth as a roaring lion. There's another connection. Both of them, both Jesus and Satan, came from heaven to earth. right? One in the story fell because he thought that he would make himself like God. And then Jesus, we wouldn't want to say he fell, but he did come down. He in a way, he did fall from his place in heaven, right? He came down to die, as so the story goes. They both, in a way, said that they would be like, well, not even in a way, they both literally, in the story, Jesus said that he thought it not robbery. And again, you can Google all this stuff. I'm sorry I don't have verses available. I'm kind of riffing off what I know. But Jesus said he thought it not robbery to be equal with God. And Lucifer fell for saying that he would be like the Most High, like he would be like God. They both did the same thing. What landed Lucifer, a place in hell and falling from heaven, is exactly what Jesus said, that he thought it not robbery to be like the Most High. And not only did he say that, he said that anybody who believes in him would be greater than him and would do greater things. It's a little, I don't know if I want to say confusing, but it's confounding, maybe is it better? They kind of mean the same thing. But confounding, I think, feels more correct. When I first kind of fell from the idea of Christianity, it had to do with the book of Job. And not just the book of Job, but when you're interpreting the entire Bible literally, like I was raised to do in a Christian household, I literally took it literally. I looked at the story and I said to myself, okay, here's a literal dude named God and a literal dude named Jesus and a literal dude named Satan, et cetera, et cetera. But I remember thinking to myself early on, I believe, right? Anybody who professes to be a Christian believes this story. But if it's real, if it's literally factual, well, Satan or Lucifer didn't believe. He knew. He knew the reality of God, that we just believe the words on the page, right? So I remember thinking, if he knew for a fact, he knew he was created by this guy, this character, that could destroy him, snap of a finger. Why would he screw up? Why would he do what he knew he shouldn't do, right? Call himself equal. It didn't make any sense to me then, and it doesn't make any sense to me now, if we're looking at it literally, right? Why would he do that? And I remember thinking, why is there no devil's side of the story? You don't get the devil's side of the story. You get the everything in the Bible, which a lot of it is insane, but you get all of that, but you don't get the side of the guy that fell and why he did what he did. And it's not just that Satan or Lucifer or the devil, whatever you want to call him, fell, but it said that many of the angels came with him. So here are all, not only the one angel, Lucifer, that fell, but loads of them came down. They all threw their finger up, right, to this character called Jehovah, God. And my question was, why? Why would they do that, knowing that they're going to be destroyed? They must have had a pretty, in my opinion, I remember thinking they must have had a pretty good reason. What is the reason, right? There are a lot of books that never made it into the Bible when the Catholic Church was deciding what books were going to end up in the Bible. And I've looked into some of these, and it seems to imply that there were sects of early Christians that believed that Jesus Christ came to change or to kind of do away with the God of the Old Testament that was actually the devil. And when you think about it, what did that God do? He demanded blood sacrifice to forgive, to be pacified, to be kind to his own creation, right? If we are indeed that character from that book's creation. But you think about it. I mean, what did Jesus do? If we're drawing a connection between Jesus and Lucifer or Jesus and Satan, Jesus changed all the shit around, right down to the God of the Old Testament demanded blood sacrifice. Jesus said, you know what, screw that, no more. I'm the lamb. Take me. That's kind of it's pretty hefty move, right? But that's not it. I mean, when you everybody's heard, the turn the other cheek. And where does that come from? In the Old Testament, the God of the Old Testament said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And Jesus in the New Testament said, you've heard an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I say unto you, if somebody, hits you on your right side, turn and give them the left. He changed a lot of, there's a particular story, and I'm probably going to screw it up, and I don't know exactly where it is. Read your Bible. It's either in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, but it has something to do with the fact that, there's a verse where they're talking about the Sabbath, and one of the apostles or disciples wants to pick corn or wheat or something, and it's the Sabbath, and one of the other disciples says, don't do that, it's the Sabbath. And Jesus says, it's not a big deal, go ahead. But then Jesus stops and he says, well, wait till the Pharisees and the Sadducees, in other words, the high political, religious know-it-alls of that time, he says, wait till they come out of the temple and then pick it on the day that they say not to pick it. He was a rebel, man. He was what's a good word? I've been having these memory issues since my accident. Disruptor. He was disrupting the religious system of the day. And in a way, you know what? That's what I'm doing with this video. That's what and it's hard not to. If you study the Bible and you look at what mainstream fundamental Christians of all denominations teach, but you look at the book that they're teaching out of, it's the only reason you know anything about Jesus or the God of the Old Testament or the New Testament, right? The only reason you know anything about it is because it's in that book. And how many Christians have sat down and read that book? Not to mention sat down and studied it. I started doing that when I was 17 years old. I had a little red notebook and I kept notes. I couldn't get on Google. I found my first contradictions. The first contradiction I found on my own, I remember, was a verse that said, Jesus said, any man that saith thou fool is in danger of hellfire. And then there's another verse where Jesus says thou fool. And I thought, is he in danger of hellfire? Did he just endanger himself? And there's so many. I'm gonna do a video about contradictions, maybe next or soon. But the fact of the matter is that there is a heavy connection between Jesus and Satan. Sorry, there is in the Bible. They're both referred to as lions. They both came down from heaven. They both defied the laws of the Old Testament God. And quite frankly, the Old Testament God was responsible for all kinds of deaths and murders. And I mean, what is the Passover? People celebrate the Passover to this day. And what was that? It was the Spirit of God coming and killing all the newborn children, right? And if they didn't have lamb's blood, I believe it was goat's blood, some kind of, some kind of blood smeared above the door, over the door, then their children died. That's God. That's God. That's the Christian God, the Jewish God, the Judeo-Christian God that everybody believes in and gets down with, without questioning, without reading the book, without really putting much thought into it. I've put some thought into it, and my question is there a connection, right? What if the Old Testament, like I said at the beginning of this, there's a verse that says, now we see as through a glass darkly. A glass darkly would show us our reflection, right? We'd see a reflection of ourselves, which would be backwards. And if you look at the Old Testament, you look at the New Testament, it seems almost to be a reflection of itself, backwards, right? And with the 40 years and the 40 days in the wilderness, Satan in the New Testament, God in the Old Testament, saying the same, offering the same kind of thing to people in the wilderness. Maybe it goes deeper than that. Maybe it doesn't matter at all. That's probably a pretty good stance to take. Go with love. Go with gratitude. Close the book. But if we're not going to close the book, if we're going to continue preaching and we're going to continue telling people that they're going to go to hell if they don't believe the story, well, let's really dig into the story and figure out what are you believing? I've tried to talk to so many people about this and nobody gives a shit. Why do I give a shit? I mean, there's the verse in the Bible that says, the path is narrow. Few are they that find it, right? It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Maybe I have something to say that matters. If you don't care, I don't care. I'm going to continue talking about this. I specifically wanted to begin my talking about spiritual matters on my YouTube channel with my paranormal experiences to point out that I don't not believe in anything. I'm not an atheist. I don't adhere to any label or to any, like I've said for a long time. Anybody who asks me what religion I am, I tell them I don't like to name call. But that doesn't mean I don't believe in something. I shared a lot of, and I have more experiences to share, and I'll share them in time. But I shared a lot of my paranormal, strange experiences to point out that it's not even a matter of belief with me. I know there's something more. What that something more is, I don't know. And I don't know that anybody does. But when people are proselytizing and brainwashing and trying to get you to come over to their side, to believe their story, their side of things, I think it's a good idea to study the story. And that's what I've been doing with regard to the Bible and Christianity for a long time. And there's some stuff in there that, anybody remember Arsenio Hall? He used to have that thing on his show where he used to say things that make you go, Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of things in the Bible that make you go, And you can choose to listen or not. As Christ would have said in one of his parables, to they that have ears to hear will hear. And if you don't, whatever. I think if you're looking for some kind of truth and you believe that there may be some kind of truth, maybe it's a good idea to study the book that you feel like you're deriving truth from. If you're not doing that, but you're going to come at me and, like, after my last video, I had people delete me and unfriend me and block me on Facebook. One guy I've known since I'm like 15 years old. I'm 47 now. And he admitted, he actually wrote me prior to blocking me to tell me he didn't even listen to the whole video. What an open mind. What a shining example of someone really looking for truth and wisdom. But whatever, I'm sharing the things that I have gathered as I've been gathering things. And I'm going to end, I think, every video, every idea that I share with the idea that love by itself, no books, no pastors, no priests, no churches, love alone is sufficient. I'm not going to argue about it. I know that. I know how much I love my son. I know how much I love the people in my life. I know that that is something that can be gained without a book. You don't need it. I watch there's debates between, this Christian and this atheist, and this Christian and this atheist. And one of the arguments that Christians often try to make is, well, where's your moral compass? Where do you get your morals from? How do you know you're doing what's right? So what the fuck are you talking about? How do you know you're doing what's right? If I come and I slap you in the face, right, and you didn't want me to, are you pretty clear on the fact that what I just did was wrong? Did you need the Bible to help you with that? You didn't. There are two verses in the Bible. There's a lot of verses in the Bible, but there are two contradicting verses with regard to what Jesus said. One said that Jesus says to love your mother and your father and your sister and your brother, and to love everyone, right? Then there's another particular verse where it says, any man that hateth not his father and his brother and his mother and his sister, et cetera, is not worthy to be my disciple. So one, he says he wants you to love. One, he says he wants you to hate. And Christians, pastors, people that are trying to proselytize and indoctrinate will make excuses for the hate verse. They'll do whatever they can to try to point out that, well, he didn't really mean hate. What he really means is it says hate. And the fact that they will go to such measures to try to explain away the hate, but to say what he really meant was love, lets you know that you don't need Jesus telling you whether or not you need to hate or love to know whether or not you need to hate or love. You already know. That's why they're trying to make excuses for the hate verse, because they know it's fucking fucked up and wrong. Period. It's real simple. We have an inner compass. We know. We already know. And that's all I'm really trying to share here. The inner compass says love. The inner compass says, just like the idea of religion, the etymological meaning of the word religion means to bind together or to reconnect, right? What are we reconnecting with? What are we trying to rebind together with? I think the religions of the world, and I use when I say religions of the world, the truth is that there's all these different religions that do not bind together. They're all separate, in the same way that, America is called, what is it? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, but it's really not the United States of America. It's the divided states of America, because, you go to one state, you won't go to jail if you're smoking pot on the corner. Go to another state, you will. And it's the same thing with religion. There are all these different factions. They're not bound together. The word religion means to connect. It means to bind together. And we or the powers that be have taken the word, perverted it, and made it look like, well, that's one religion, that's another religion. Really, these schools of thought that don't agree at all. Religion, religion, religion. No, it's not. The idea that we feel inclined to say I'm spiritual, not religious, is a testament to the fact that the word religion, when you trace it back, is not being identified properly in today's day and age. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get to a point where sense is made again, especially when you're talking about things like, life and death and the idea of God and divinity, if it exists at all. Do you want to be sure about it, or do you just want to like believe what everybody believed in your family before you showed up and didn't care to think about at all? Just believe it, you know? Sorry, that's not me. So you can take into consideration the things I said about Jesus and Satan, and I'll make a more in-depth video about the book of Job in my next video, I think, and it'll further, in a way, further elaborate on the idea that that I don't think we have it right, that we haven't interpreted that book correctly, and anyway. That's it. That's what I had to say. I'm 26 minutes. I'm almost 27 minutes into this. I'm going to shut up. But yeah, stick with me. You know what's funny too? I used to say that I'm gonna add a song at the end of each video, and I kind of stopped doing that. But I'm gonna add one because I heard it earlier tonight. And it's a song called Children of the Grave by Black Sabbath. You know who first showed me that song? My mother. My mother had the album Masters of Reality. And she was pointing out how this band who kind of got this evil rap had these songs. And if you really paid attention to the lyrics, they weren't really that evil, Children of tomorrow live in the tears that fall today. Check out Children of the Grave by Black Sabbath. Read the lyrics. It's a good song if you like good rock music. And maybe somehow or another it connects with the dichotomy, the paradoxical nature of the the message here with regard to Jesus and Lucifer and God and Satan. There's some weird connections there, and we'll get into it further in the future. Only love.